Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'm having a conversation with Jocelyn and Justin of Schooner Riggin. They're joining me from Maine, and it's early my time here. I'm in Vegas where it's going to probably hit 100 today, and they are on the beautiful Maine coast getting ready this evening to go out with another group. So, welcome.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so tell me about first what is the weather today in lovely Maine?
Oh my gosh, you've been out longer than I have this
It is
morning.
it's a little warm today here in Maine, especially for this time of year. Just just stepping our toes into summer, but I think it's getting up to 85, 90
Oh,
today.
yeah, I think you got some sort of odd heat wave that's going that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's gonna be a warm one.
yeah, so
Hopefully the breeze comes with it.
yeah, so tell us what is a schooner, to be honest, for myself a little bit more. I've seen the pictures. I subscribe to Down East magazine, so I'm always reading about amazing experiences to add on to what I love to do. But we'll start with what's a schooner?
Yeah, there are a lot of terms that get thrown around like the tall ship industry and the sailing world. And so schooner is one we get a lot, and windjammer is another one that you'll hear a lot. Schooner refers to the rig on the boat. So schooner is a two-masted boat where the main mast, the one that's further aft on the boat, is taller than the one in front of it, the foremast. And so that's what makes her a schooner, and the sails run fore and aft instead of like those big parallel or perpendicular to the boat square sails like you'd see if you like imagine like a pirate ship with those big
Oh, okay.
rectangular sails. Ours run forward from the bow of the boat toward the stern of the boat.
Wow.
Um, and so it's a really like schooner is pretty technical to like what kind of boat she is. And
Yeah.
then we also use the word windjammer a lot, and windjammer tells you about what it is that the boat does for work. So windjammer used to actually be sort of like a derogatory
Yeah.
way of
Oh,
talking
was
about
it?
sailing vessels in general. Oh, the windjammers,
Yeah.
but it's been like reclaimed by this variety of boats that take people out on multi-day cruises, and it's what distinguishes us from a boat that maybe just goes out for a day sailboat. Um, and it kind of tells people something of what it is that we're out there doing.
So it is completely powered then by the wind. There is no motor as such, or
Yeah, so the schooner herself, the Riggin, one thing that makes her special is she doesn't have an inboard engine. The big 120-foot schooner itself has no engine in it, aside from we carry with us a small 16-foot launch that has a pretty powerful engine in it, and we'll use that boat as, a tug essentially for getting in and out of the harbor. If there's no wind, we can use it to either push or pull us along. But it also doubles as a really nice launch for getting ourselves and our guests to and from the schooner to shore or to a little town, when we're at anchor.
And that would have historically been the case. When the Riggin was
okay.
first built back in 1927 to dredge oysters, she would have had this auxiliary separate boat that pushed the big boat around in conditions where she'd have to navigate, like getting on and off a dock, but also if there's no wind.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's a small but mighty workhorse. Then we call her that type of boat we call a yawl boat.
Okay. Yeah. So historically then these boats were used for industry as such. They wouldn't be
Yeah.
going like transatlantic or anything like that.
Some of them would be. So like
Okay.
the schooner rig back in the day it was pretty popular. And you would see many varieties of schooners. So like they would still have the same style schooner rig being at least two masts with the aft one being higher. But used and built for different purposes. And you can see that and if you look, you Google the term schooner, you'll see a bunch of different looking vessels, some that were used for fishing, some that were used for hauling cargo up and down the coast, others that were used for crossing the Atlantic. Um, it really was a versatile sailing rig and quite useful, especially up here in North America. It became quite popular.
I
Yeah.
should clarify that historically there have been schooners with more than two masts, but there are not many left.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
Most of them
sure they're
remain are
not.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know you were telling me right before we got on camera, Jocelyn, it's like the season kind of for sailing obviously is, good weather, and Maine does get some wicked cold winters, but you're
two.
busy all year round. There's something to do with the boat all year round.
Yeah, she's a labor of love and she keeps our hands quite full.
Yeah.
Um, but we our season is sort of like there's a finite weather window in which people want to be sailing on the coast of Maine. So we sail with guests from around Memorial Day weekend until usually around the second week of October. And that in that window of time, we cram as
Oh,
many trips as we can, get as many people out on the water as we can in that finite window before the weather turns on us. Um, Prior to sailing, we spend most of March, April, and May really focused on getting the boat ready for
Mhm.
the season because everything that can be removed from the boat gets removed. And then it gets serviced and inspected and repaired if it needs to be repaired before it gets reassembled to go back onto the boat. And that process takes a while. There are a lot of little
It's a lot.
blocks and pieces and parts. We
yeah.
want to make sure they're all in tip-top shape. Um,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the season, we take all of that stuff back off the boat, back to our house has an attached barn, so we do all of our winter maintenance in that attached barn. And so it takes us about 2 weeks in 2.5 weeks in October to get all of that stuff taken off of the boat and back to the shop for its winter maintenance cycle. Um, and the boat actually stays in the water all winter, which I think is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Most people take their boats out of the water for the winter, but the Riggin is so big that we leave her right in the water and we build like
Big
a PVC and
shrink wrap
shrink wrap
cover.
cover. She looks a bit like a greenhouse floating on the
That's
water in the winter.
amazing.
And that
Yeah.
allows our crew to work undercover and maintain some semblance of warmth in the cold of winter to continue to work on the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually surprised me because I've been up to Camden and Rockland, like second week of October, and you will see in the harbor these big white shrink wrap
Yep.
boats, which you're like, oh my gosh, and then you see a lot of them being lifted out and taken out of the water. But I would have never have guessed a boat like yours would stay in the water. That's pretty amazing that you're able to do that and then just
And
keep working on it all winter like that.
she does come out. We haul her out every spring for a couple of weeks to service everything below the water line. But yeah, other than that, she spends most of her life in the water. We can get away with that in these cold climates because there aren't quite so many things that um, are, I don't know, I think boats in the
Kind of
south have like more
destructive
issues
to
with
wooden
growth and
boats.
stuff like that, but we have
Right.
fewer
Yeah.
issues with that up here.
Yeah, that's true. So you're both originally from Maine. Tell us a little bit about your love of Maine.
Oh, do you want to, so Justin grew up,
Yeah, so we're not actually originally from Maine.
mhm.
No, tell me your story.
We're
So
tra
do you want to, yeah, do you
trans
want to start first, Justin?
we're transplants.
No,
No,
that's okay. Like I
You
said, I
should
grew
tell
up,
about your journey to the boat because that's
okay.
great.
All right.
yeah.
So I originally grew up South Shore, Long Island, New York. I grew up sailing, been out on the water since I was a year and a half old.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't make my way up to Maine per se until I was about, I think I was like 12 or 13 when my family, my parents and I booked a week-long cruise out on the Riggin,
Oh,
the
on
boat that
this exact boat.
the exact boat. So yeah, I came up for a trip, absolutely fell in love with it. was completely enamored by the sailing. It was so much different than what I was used to. The crew, just like to little 13-year-old me, appeared to be like these just rock star figures, larger than life. And obviously, the food was incredible. And I fell in love with it and made it a point to come back every single year after that as an apprentice,
Oh my
because I
gosh.
wasn't old enough to legally get paid. So I'd come up and volunteer for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month at a time, working alongside the deck crew, the galley crew, kind of really learning the ins and outs of not only this business, but the Riggin herself. And then as soon as I was of the legal age to be paid, I was a deckhand for many years. I then spent some time on board her as the mate, which a promotion from deckhand to a more managerial role. It was when I was the mate. That's when we met.
Mhm.
Oh
Justin.
wow.
I was I grew up in Northeast Ohio and
Okay, Midwest, like I did, like so
right,
far from the water. Yeah,
it
exactly.
sure is. And I was going to college there studying education. And a friend of mine, who was a couple of years older than me in his senior year, my sophomore year, told me that he was going to go studying abroad for his senior year as the last hurrah. And I hadn't really grown up doing much traveling, so the prospect of seeing somewhere new sounded really exciting to me. And so he told me that he had signed up for a 3 week study abroad where we would be crew on a ship sailing from port to port in the Caribbean and studying the history of the islands.
Wow.
And that if I was willing to sign up, it'd be really fun to go together. And so I did. A little reluctantly at first because I hadn't spent much time on the water and I was really worried about seasickness.
Yeah, that I would be worried about that too.
Yeah, and I just fell in love with it immediately. The way that these boats move, like through the water, like glide through the water, you really don't see a lot of seasickness on these like big ships like this.
Really?
Yeah, so I wasn't sick at all the whole time. It was fantastic. I had so much fun and I learned so much. And I loved the boat as a classroom. So I actually kind of forayed into sailing by teaching on the boats and working on sail training boats with like high school students and middle school students, teaching them about the boats. Um, and as I was teaching history on these boats, a friend of mine was like, there's this historic fleet of like, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of these old schooners up in Maine. So if you think like a boat that's built in the 80s to be a replica of an old boat is cool, you should go sail on an actual old boat that's like 100 years old in Maine. So I came right up and started working in the Windjammer fleet. And within a week of arriving in Maine, I met Justin.
No way, you're
And
kidding.
I never left.
And where are you guys based out of in Maine? Is it Rockland or?
Yeah, Rockland.
Yeah,
Okay, which is
Rockland, right in the mid
beautiful.
coast.
Yeah, it's right on the mid coast. You see all the nature there is incredible. I mean, it's just a beautiful place.
Yeah, we have a lot of fantastic, there's like a lot of really nice trails and a lot of great outdoor spaces. There's also a beautiful like art community in
Yeah.
Rockland where we are. A lot of the Farnsworth Art Museum, and there's a contemporary art museum called the CMCA, and a bunch
Bunch of
of
independent
co-op
galleries.
galleries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's actually it's such a cool little thing to be like nestled in among this like really beautiful natural space.
Yeah, and I think Rockland does it has that great mix of art. You have the history of the Wyeths, which is a legacy of painters that have painted the Maine coastline. You've got the little, I think they had like a puffin association there.
Yep.
And I love the puffins, so I'm sure do you see puffins? I always associate them with like Alaska and further places north.
We do occasionally see puffins. They're very they're shy creatures and they like to hang out on the very outskirts of the bay on like the outer lying islands. So if the weather's right, um, and it's not, too lumpy out there, we'll make our way out to pay them a visit.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
they're funny. They're like I thought they were gonna be bigger, seeing them only in pictures. The first time that we saw one, I was like, oh my gosh, the whole bird is like the size of like a football.
Right. Yeah, they're little
They're
tiny things.
Yeah, they're tiny little things.
way smaller than I thought. I don't know what I was expecting.
And Rockland also has a great food scene. So I know you mentioned, Justin, on the boat, the food, and it's just, I think, all the natural ingredients that gets used.
Yeah, do you want to talk a bit about
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Absolutely.
because I think
My
that's kind of,
wheelhouse.
That's our
I
wheel.
think that's your wheelhouse, right, Jocelyn, is the
Take it
food.
away.
Absolutely. So, my role on board the boat, I'm the chef on board. And I never cooked professionally before I started cooking on this boat, on this wood stove, on this boat. Um, but I think that I just fell in love with the idea of cooking in this environment specifically because of what a fantastic place we're in for food. Like
Yes.
we're right on the coast. So we get the best of both land and sea. Inland, just a few miles from the boat, are all these fantastic local farms that are
Oh,
doing really cool things. So I have excellent access to produce. And then on the bay itself, we have great access to seafood. There's lobster, and there are new aquaculture like farms popping up
oh wow.
every day. So we have great access to oysters and mussels and lobsters and crab, like right in the
Amazing.
bay. We're sailing right over top of them. And we get halibut even up here.
Oh,
Like
really?
it's
Wow.
all so great. And then I have like a farm share. I have a great relationship with a local butcher in town. We get most of our meat from our local butcher, all of our seafood from co-ops on the coast, and most of our produce from our farm shares right here in our own community.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun to like build those relationships so that we can source this really like farm to table dining experience, even though we're on the water.
Right, I was just gonna, we were gonna take it on the water, which is just, it seems so beautiful and stunning, and the freshness. I mean, the blueberries in the fall, and I'm sure in
Mhm.
springtime there's other berries, but it's just like tasting it is just, it's amazing how fresh. So much of the United States even, we're not eating, food that was picked that morning or 2 days ago even. It's been on a truck. It's just not the same.
People are always so surprised to learn about how much we're able to produce ourselves in our own garden too. Like I have like a really lovely I have raised beds and a nice herb garden, and we keep our own bees at home because I
Oh,
just
wow.
love keeping bees. It was something that I always wanted to do, and it was my like COVID project turned into like this
Sure.
thing that we now do. Yeah, I just love it so much. And so like we're able to bring honey from our own hives right to the boat, and herbs that we've
Cut that.
cut that morning from our garden right on board with us. And it's really nice to be able to highlight those moments for folks who are sailing. I think that it's fairly common feedback for us that the food element of the schooner Riggin experience is like the part that people are most surprised about.
Right. I would think so.
Because I think people come to sail in Maine and expect like this bold rocky coast and these incredible views of like beautiful lighthouses, and they expect all of that to be like really enchanting, but then like I think that they don't always think necessarily about what that dining experience might be like, or they hear that like it's sort of a
If
rustic like glamping type of experience, and they think pot of chili or something, but it's
Right.
so much more than that. Yeah.
So tell us about the cruises themselves now. We should tell people, I know you offer like different lengths of cruises. Tell us a little bit about, where do people sleep on a boat, or do they have a bathroom? The basics that some of us might think. Because honestly, I think the experience is just that. It's super unique and something you want to do. If you want to go stay in a floating hotel, go take the big cruise ship and go do that. But this is just so much better to me. I mean, I
yeah,
travel like
it's
this all the time. I want to stay in the small, bed and breakfast that looks a little run down, that's been there for 100 years, and have, some grandma or, anybody making me fresh muffins in the morning is like, I'm there.
It's a much different way. I would say that like this is a much different way of connecting and like immersing yourself in the community. For Justin and I, when we decided to become the stewards of this boat, which was a
Yeah.
big undertaking and a really like life-altering responsibility that we took on, it was really important to us that if we were going to show people or like be a guide to somebody into this place that is our home that we love, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is ethical and that is authentic. So I want to make sure that if somebody invests their dollars in us to experience Maine with us, that those dollars are staying in our community and that we're reinvesting those dollars into other small businesses. So it's not just the farms and the butcher, it's also like the soap on the corner of your sink in your cabin is from a local soap
There we
maker. And
go.
like
Wow.
as many ways in which we can reinvest in our community
We do.
is
Yeah.
best, and we do. And that's like part of our
Yeah. Even if it means spending an extra dollar or two on something, we
Yeah.
think it's important to go that extra mile to you know, keep here going.
And also want to make sure that the experience is authentic, that we're taking people to like these sort of off the beaten path destinations that feel a little more like you're in the community versus like somewhere that feels a bit like a tourist trap, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, it totally makes sense.
Because those
Right.
destinations are so accessible. Like if you want to have that experience, you absolutely can. But part of being able to travel in this really cool way via this historic ship is that we can get to some of these places that are a little more inaccessible, and those are the places that I'm excited to show you, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then sorry, you asked about cabins, I
No,
think,
no,
at the
no. Well,
beginning.
Yeah.
tell us
But
a
I had
little
to
bit.
tangent there.
No, no, I love that because that's totally my message too. It's like we have to, the few of us that are out here, we have to try to have that commitment to keeping small communities, making places still unique, because that is the beauty of the United States is we have such different places to travel to. But if we allow, and I hate to always use my example of Starbucks, I use it every single video, I think. But it's like, I applaud their success, but it also saddens me because it wipes out the small local mom and pop coffee shop where I'm going to get to go in and meet someone who's sourcing her beans and sharing that passion. It's just a different experience. And so we have to support these places. And it sounds like exactly what you are in line with is, like you said, the soap on your countertop. I mean, it's unique and someone's taken time and love to make that because they love making soap, or they love raising bees, which I that's a whole other venture there.
Right? I love
Yeah.
that you use the example of coffee. That is another thing that we source really locally. We have a fantastic roastery right in town that's a co-op that we get all of our coffee from. Love you, Rock City. Fuel my
Yay.
summer. Yeah. But
Shout out for them. Yes,
yeah,
please.
right. They're the best. But the space on board, the accommodations on board for those who might be wondering about what it's like to live on the schooner, our cruises run on the short end 3 days. So it's one night on the dock. That first night is boarding night, and we always spend that first night on the dock, and we'll depart in the morning.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
2 nights away from the dock, and then we'll get back on what would be kind of late morning of that fourth day. So we call that a 3 day, 3 night cruise. And then on the long end would be a full week out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And the cabins on board, we have 11 cabins. Some have two single beds in them, like two twin beds. Some have one double bed in them. And then we have two cabins that are triples. They have three bunks in them, which is perfect for like small groups of friends traveling together, or parents traveling with a kid, or like small families. The other thing I love those triple cabins for are solo travelers who are
Okay.
trying to meet folks out on the water. Sometimes we'll get folks who are, coming by themselves and are like open to sharing a space with somebody else who is also coming by themselves. And those triple cabins sometimes get a group of like solo travelers. And it always makes me smile when they come back and then book together the next time.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But in the cabins, there are comfy mattresses. We have like wool blankets and duvets on all the beds. So it's like it's plushy, comfy in those bunks. The cabins have lights and you have your own sink in the
Yeah,
cabins
each
and
cabinet's running
a
water.
nice mirror. Yeah. And they also have outlets
Oh,
for
interesting.
charging, not like 110 outlets like you'd have in your house, but
Like
like
12
those
volt.
12-volt outlets like you'd have in your car.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can keep your phone charged or your camera charged over the course of the trip. But if you want to enjoy a more unplugged vacation experience, um, you can just not charge your phone if you
Yeah,
prefer.
there you
Some
go.
people do.
Right.
Some people do that. We have guests that like as soon as they step on board on boarding night, they take their phone, they turn it off and shove it in the bottom of the suitcase and
Like we'll see it again in a couple days.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And then we do have bathrooms on board too, of course. We have two heads. We call them heads is just a
nautical term.
fancy nautical term for bathrooms. Um, and they're pretty modern. I mean, they look quite a bit like an at-home toilet, and there's like an electrical little panel on the
Yeah,
wall. You just like push a button to flush. It's
away
like
it goes.
pretty
Wow.
approachable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not scary marine. Uh Sometimes marine toilets can be a little finicky, but these ones are really easy, I think really easy to use.
Yeah, pretty
And
easy, pretty
we have a
approachable.
too. There's a shower, like a kind of, it's almost like a camp style shower inside one of the bathrooms. And so you can even take a fancy shower if you like. Hot
Really?
water for that. Yeah. All of
Wow.
our water on board is heated by the wood stove. So
Oh,
as long as the
nice.
stove is running, we have hot water for showers and for dishes and things like that.
That's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. I wouldn't have thought you could take a shower on a ship, you know?
Yeah, you sure can.
You can take a shower on an almost 100-year-old wooden sailing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to me the boat then is 100 years old. I mean,
Yeah, almost,
Almost.
almost.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
I don't know how we celebrate her 100th birthday yet, but
right.
I'm sure
Yeah,
we have just a little bit
exactly.
more time to come up with something.
It's a really
Yeah.
nice cake.
Yep.
So is there space for people to bring luggage? Because we know there are some people that tend to pack a lot. Are there, a little bit, a boat, you would think you'd have a little bit less space, so they might want to rethink what they're bringing or
Yeah, cabins are quaint and cozy. Whenever anybody books, and even before they do, we do have a packing list online, like a suggested packing list. And I always encourage people to pack in soft-sided duffel bags. Um, People are welcome. They're just a little more malleable and a little easier to like kind of compress down underneath a bed.
Get it through.
But it's not unusual for folks who are traveling from farther away to like bring their stuff through the airport in a hard-sided suitcase that's easier to roll and then like pop some of those things into a duffel bag to take
Oh,
on the boat
that's
with them.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think soft-sided luggage
Yeah, that's
does
the ideal.
better on board. And yeah, I'd say the accommodations are cozy, but people don't spend as much time in their cabins as they might think they would,
Yeah,
because most of the action and most of what there is to see is happening up on deck. So,
yeah, it's not like a cruise ship where you have a TV and all this stuff in your cabin, so you're just staying there watching TV while you're on a boat.
No.
You're here for what's going on outside. You're here to sail past islands and seals and bald eagles. You're here to, you know, take part in the sailing of the vessel and see the excellent food that Joss is putting out from the galley.
Yes.
The majority of the time you're spending in your cabin, you're pretty wiped from the day and you're just sleeping down there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so what is kind of a typical one of the days, say, on the boat for guests?
Yeah, I think most of the time um the day starts for Hmm. That is a pretty typical day. I suppose the day could start as early as 6 a.m. That's when I put up coffee in the morning. It
Okay.
takes me a couple of hours to get the stove hot and going and enough to boil water. So usually between 6 and 6:30 we have coffee. And for some early risers, they're already up with the sun when that coffee comes up to deck in the morning.
I was just
Um,
gonna say the sunrises along
for
the
to
coast have,
sleep in.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the sunrises over the water are just incredible.
Never gets old.
No. You'd think
We've
after,
seen
like,
hundreds of them.
that's so
Still not
true.
getting old.
Not over it. Um, but yeah, so coffee around 6:30, and then folks sort of trickle up to deck in their own time. At 8 a.m. I serve breakfast, and so we see most everybody for that.
Yeah,
Mm,
I
you
bet.
skip
Yeah.
breakfast. And then shortly after breakfast, we usually get underway. Around that time, Justin's usually checking the weather and figuring out where it makes sense to go as we're cleaning up from breakfast. And so by the time we've got breakfast cleaned up, he at least has an idea
An
of which
idea.
direction we're going to
Yeah.
head in for the
That's
day.
kind of the cool thing about what we do is, being a sailing vessel, we don't have an itinerary.
Yeah, I love that.
Like when we head out on the water, it's kind of like, okay, let's see what the wind, tide, and weather's doing, and we'll plan accordingly. But it makes it so that no two trips are ever the same. Just because we're not doing this bus route, we're not okay.
Right.
Leave Rockland, go to Bar Harbor, go to Stonington, back to Rockland. It's never like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes it special, and allows people to come back year after year and still have a new and exciting experience each year, because maybe I take them to an island or a harbor that they haven't been to yet, or man, we've never sailed this direction through this way, it's so totally different, or like the sailing is so different from last trip than it is this trip. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And I think that's one thing too. People don't realize the thousands of miles of coastland of Maine. I mean, you can look at a map, but it still doesn't until you start driving. And I know I didn't even realize until you like actually take the time to even drive down one of those little fingers of land. That's a full day sometimes, especially if you like to take pictures and get out and
Yeah.
actually experience that little part of, so even I'm sure thousands of islands out there along the coast of Maine.
Yeah, I think there's over 2,000 islands off the coast of Maine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of places to go and things to see. Um, and we'll sail pretty much after breakfast all the way until 3 or 4. Often if we didn't go get an opportunity to go ashore somewhere and walk around in the morning, we'll send everybody ashore once we anchor up for the evening. If there's a place to get ashore, we try to get folks ashore somewhere once a day, whether that's like a small coastal town or just like an
Nice
island that
trails.
has a nice trail to walk or like somewhere scenic to just like explore a little. Um, we try to get folks off the boat to experience the communities along the coastline. Um, and then lunch, we usually serve lunch underway. But once we're anchored up for the evening, I serve hors d'oeuvres and dinner and a dessert.
Oh my gosh.
And then we're just like hanging out.
Yeah, we're
We
hanging out.
play games, sometimes we play music. We have a lot of really talented, we have had a lot of really talented and have a lot of really talented musicians on staff. And so
Oh, really?
it's not unusual for people to bring instruments too. Even guests will like come with a little guitar or a mandolin or a banjo or a fiddle, and we'll just like
Yeah, a little
entertain and
jam
play
session.
in the evening. It's really nice.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's cool because it's like this environment that's so removed from like modern technology. So it just,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to say it forces you, but it's this environment that curates, you
Right.
know, interaction amongst people. Like it forces you to like look over at your neighbor and say, "Hi, how are you? Where are you from?" And
Right.
I don't know, it's like this, I don't know, every time I look at it, it's like it's one of the best social experiments I've ever seen. Let's take 24 guests, throw them on a 100-year-old sailboat, and complete strangers, and see what happens after 4 days. And I would say 99% of the time after those 4 days, they're leaving as lifelong friends, exchanging contacts. Some of them are coming back
Wow.
on subsequent cruises that they're, coordinating and booking together.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's pretty incredible. We know we've done our job well when we have people leaving the boat crying that they have to leave.
Right, yeah.
Like
Yeah, that is.
it's like, oh my God, don't cry. We're not going anywhere. You
I
can come back, but they're just like, oh my God, I just had this beautiful experience and now
wow.
I have to go back to life.
Yeah, you're
It just makes us, I don't know, it gives me the warm and fuzzies, makes me feel like we did our job to show people that there's more to this world than just the
right.
9 to 5 and waking up to your alarm and going through your daily routine. There's something to be said for having a close, personal, one-on-one interaction with somebody. There's something to be said for getting people out in nature to, like, at very least just touch some grass
Right, yeah,
and
Or some
exactly.
ocean, I guess.
or some ocean.
Yeah.
And, like, on top of that, show them what food can and should look like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned your crew, so you have how many additional crew members to help you run this whole operation on board?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of work that goes on. That's not just all, you know,
It takes five of us, a
five.
bare minimum of five of us, and that's including Jocelyn and myself. So up
Wow.
on deck, I'll have two deckhands that assist me in sailing the boat and maneuvering, getting on and off the dock. And Jocelyn has a sous chef with her down in the galley.
I do.
But I,
We also have a really great apprenticeship program for like high
Oh,
school age
nice.
students who are curious about maritime careers. They can come and work on the boat alongside my staff for like 2 to 4 weeks on the long end, um, to kind of like get the experience of working in a ship's galley or
Yeah.
working on deck, usually a combination of
yeah,
both. It's pretty unusual actually that one would be just one or the other, but yeah.
That's
And
great.
it's how Justin got
yeah,
his start. This summer, my brother is coming to do an
Oh,
apprenticeship, my
really?
youngest brother.
Wow.
yeah.
So like it's a good way to like to get the experience before committing to like before signing on for an entire season. And so we often have an apprentice throughout most of the year we have an apprentice.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
which is great.
So, yeah. So, what did your parents from Ohio? Have they been on the boat, I'm sure, by now?
They haven't actually. They're coming for the
Oh,
first time in July.
oh, yay.
They're they're like I said, we didn't grow up doing a ton of traveling. So being out on the water is really new to them. I think they're excited, um, if not maybe a little nervous, but mostly excited.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
everyone's a little nervous about thinking, oh, I'm on this boat for, if
Right?
you haven't done it, there's that little bit of fear.
It's a lot of unknown, you know what I mean? It's
It's
just like
a
a
lot
lot of
of that's all.
unfamiliar. And it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe before you've experienced it, you know?
Yeah.
Right, right. And just like you mentioned, like for people that might get seasick, you kind of mentioned that most people you haven't had an issue with that.
Yeah. And I know my dad in particular is distinctly excited about the food.
Right. Well, I mean,
Really excited
yeah,
about lobster, really excited about great cuisine up here, like just so stoked. They visited us before on land. They just haven't gone out for a sail yet. So they're pretty excited. Yeah.
so for people not sure like which cruise to book, I know Justin said like the itinerary always changes, but the seasons in Maine, there's definitely seasons. Are there, do you think the earlier cruises you see a little bit different things than later in the year? Talk
Yeah,
a little bit about that.
definitely. So, I think for people who are trying to choose a season, um, June tends to be a little cooler. It tends to be a little but the communities tend to be a little quieter. We're not quite in
Oh,
the
okay.
height of tourism season here yet. So like it's a little easier to get a to walk into a restaurant and find a table. Um it's a nice time of year to be up here because it's just a little bit before things get really
Really
wild.
crazy. Yeah.
And the sailing in June is really
It's good.
nice. You know, if
Yeah.
you have a nice wool sweater, you're going to do just fine up here in June. And then I would say July and August are obviously a beautiful, warm time of year to be up here in Maine. The sailing is a little less intense in July and August. So if you're um, like nervous about the sailing side of things, or you don't want to have like a very intense sailing experience, July and August are a great time to come. It's also a great time for families. That's when
Oh,
our kids and family trips are. We like lower our age limit for a trip or two a season to include some younger sailors. So it's a
nice.
great opportunity for like intergenerational, grandparents who want to bring their grandkids out or parents who want to bring young children out to have like a boating experience. That's a good time of year for that. Um, and then September, I would say, is peak season for like winds up here.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's when it gets really windy and we have like some really incredible days of sailing. Um, but things cool off then too.
Yeah. Towards the end of September, we're starting to cool back off, and then
October is fall foliage.
leave.
That's
Yeah.
You
see
can-
that like beautiful like orange and yellow and reds like sweeping the coastal like the coast, and it's just a beautiful time of year to be up here. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think October for those little communities, again, it's like after that Labor Day weekend, it's like those communities kind of quiet down. For some reason, it's still kind of a secret about all the fall colors up there. And
Truly.
yeah, it seems like it a little bit. I mean, maybe it's changed the last couple years. It's been a couple years since I've been up the Maine coast in October, but generally, I mean, it can be a challenge to maybe find a room to stay in, or, sometimes restaurants are changing their hours, so it just depends, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the other thing to note or when you're choosing a trip is that we have a lot of themed cruises throughout the season.
Okay.
So if you have like a particular interest, we run a lot of fiber art trips. There are a lot of fantastic knitters, and there's like a huge fiber art community in Maine. And so we work with some really fantastic artists and designers who come and host these fiber art themed trips.
Oh,
We run
cool.
photography cruises throughout the summer. Um, Also, a lot of we have a relatively new, just in the last few years, sip and sail trips
Oh,
uh, for folks who are curious about craft brews or distilleries, where we partner with craft like small breweries along the coast and pay them a visit, sail right
oh,
up to the
nice.
brewery and send folks ashore to like have little tastings and tours along the way. Or we have a couple craft cocktail trips where I step out of the galley and behind the bar, and we
There
have
you
a guest
go.
and some really fantastically curated drinks to go along. So like, and so many musicians
Oh, wow.
really some trips where we travel with musicians who play along the way, whether it's concerts or just on board, um, concerts at venues on shore or just aboard with us. So there are so many ways to explore your interests or to tailor the cruise that you choose to the
Yeah.
kinds of things that you're interested in experiencing within the community. It's like sort of like I don't know, yeah, like a way to explore your interests as they pertain to our community here in Maine, which I think is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And if you're just here for lighthouses and lobsters and great sailing, we have that too.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So as far as pricing, Are there different prices for the different kinds of cabins and people can find that online?
No, it's our pricing is one, it's all inclusive, aside from if you want to leave gratuity for the crew or if you have a vehicle to park, there are
Oh,
some
that's good.
like extra things that are not folded into the cost of the trip. But other than parking and gratuity, the trip pricing is all inclusive and it's a per person rate regardless of which cabin you
Oh,
book.
nice.
So you're just purchasing like your spot in a bunk for the trip, and all of the excursions and
Wow.
food and all of that is just folded right into that cost.
That is really
Yeah,
amazing.
that
I
way.
mean, that, and that must take a lot of planning on your part too to figure out, yeah, all the food and just all the activities. And like you said, I love the idea that the itinerary can change, that it's really up to Mother Nature, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
What is the weather like today? Where are we heading and how far are we going to sail today? I mean, that in itself is,
Which it sounds so challenging, but at the same time, I think like when you know your community and your like cruising ground as well as like Justin knows the community in this cruising ground, it kind of doesn't matter what the weather's doing. We can always
There's
find
always
some
some.
cool place
Yeah,
to
there's
go,
always
you
some
know?
reason.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's like his mind is though just like figuring out like, well, today we can probably hit this island or stop in this little port.
And that would be fun because it's Tuesday, so this place is going
Right.
to be open for them to go to. And I'm like, you're so good at this game.
I know. Yeah, that's what I love. That is fabulous. Was
Yeah,
there anything else? I think we kind of covered everything.
we definitely covered a lot.
I
Yeah.
know. I know I love Maine and I would highly suggest, it's something too if you're new to it. I mean, like a shorter cruise, like a 3 day or 5 night, you could add on then like see the coast, come up the coast from, if you fly into Boston and come all the way up, or Portland has a great airport, start there and then add on some days before or after your cruise.
Absolutely. And I would say that that is not unusual of our experience. Most of the folks who come up to sail with us, we are, a part of a broader itinerary along the coast, and they're spending some time with us, and then they're headed up to Acadia for a few days, or they're spending some time with us and they're headed down to the city for a few days. Even if they're spending more time exploring the mid coast on land, there's plenty to do between,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
like
yeah.
just right in the mid coast region.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Even Rockland, I think you definitely, there's so much right in Rockland to add on for
mhm,
sure a night at least, because just to
Yeah.
hit all the
Sometimes.
little museums and the food there too. I mean,
definitely.
what were you going to say, Justin?
No, I was going to say, I mean, some people just come to the mid coast here for their entire vacation.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
tons of things to do, whether it be Camden, Rockport, Rockland, the countless museums,
Belfast.
Belfast, the countless restaurants, the countless trails and island excursions. Yeah, it's really a vacation land.
Yeah,
Right.
literally, right, exactly. And I'm trying to think what the best airport is if you're only focusing on the mid coast. Would you say it's Portland?
There's a small airport in there's actually a small airport in Rockland that's about
Oh,
five
there
minutes
is.
from the boat. So if you're just planning on coming to Rockland, I
Yeah,
think
you can
the
fly.
flight, yeah.
They fly in from Boston.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
nice.
fly right from Boston.
Yep. And other than that, Portland and Bangor, if you're looking for a slightly larger airport, I would say are also great places to fly
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. Well, Justin and Jocelyn, it's been fabulous. I know you're busy prepping for the next cruise that literally boards in a few hours from now.
Right?
Yeah. So tell everyone what your website again is, and I'll include that as well in the show notes so if people want to book and join you on a cruise.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.schoonerriggin.com. Schooner is Schooner, and Riggin is Riggin. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at Schooner Riggin.
And follow along with all the great pictures and be tempted by the
Absolutely.
food, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much both for this amazing conversation. And I know I'm looking forward to hopefully joining you yet this year. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Thank you, April.
thanks.